All right, I'm trying not to overdo it on these newsy videos, but I do find them interesting because they're relevant. A lot of new stuff has been happening in gaming actually that's interesting around this time of year, and I actually have things to say, believe it or not. And today, I have a bit of an interesting one. People are going to accuse me of being a PlayStation fanboy. I will just direct you to my video where I call out the PlayStation 5 pre-orders for being trash and the company for handling it terribly. Sony is not a perfect company in any way. But Xbox today has made its own oopsie whoopsie poopsie because Xbox's pre-orders went on sale the other day and they're gone. They're 100% gone. They were gone in a couple hours. It lasted slightly longer than the PlayStation 5 on some of their sites, on some of the sites actually, but not really much. In fact, even Microsoft's own site where they were selling it directly through their site crashed. It failed. It just couldn't keep up with it. And there's a few things I want to talk about with this because one is Microsoft has made a lot of missteps here, and I'm going to talk about those, and they're going to make people mad, and I got to be honest, I don't really care. I mean, if you're going to get mad at me about a plastic box, you have your own problems. Regardless, it's pretty funny because there's been a lot of confusion around the Xbox Series X. Now, it's worth noting that they did take a pot shot at PlayStation on September 17th, right when the PlayStation pre-orders were pretty much a disaster and sold out immediately. They did tweet, pre-order the Xbox Series X and Series S starting on September 22nd. Xbox All Access pre-orders will also begin. It's finally happening. Get your exact local start time and participating retailers here. And before that, they had said that they would be sure to actually give a direct date. That was even before they tweeted this. So they took a couple of shots at PlayStation in terms of saying, hey, you didn't give people the right date. You didn't give the exact correct date out. So we're going to do better than you. Fair enough. That's good. And to be honest, they did announce the correct date, unlike Sony, where it was all of a sudden Walmart's were up and then everyone else's were up. So Xbox did do that right. However, here's the thing. I'm going to say it again. If you don't have enough to meet an initial rush for your product, unless that's done on purpose to limit the quantity of your product, so like certain Gucci products like that, even limited edition cars for the top 1% of people who are out there, buying a limited edition car. Those things are designed to be limited edition and sell out very quickly to create buzz. The problem with this is that the Xbox Series X and S, along with the PlayStation 5, are mass market media consoles. These are not a limited edition thing. This isn't like, hey, we sold an Xbox Series X, it was Gears of War themed, oopsie whoopsie, you didn't get on there, now it's being scalped. This is like, hey, we didn't have enough and within 2 or 3 hours we were out of stock completely, just entirely, and you can't get it. And I don't really understand this. This is a problem with both of them, but in a way, Xbox looks worse on this. I want to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm sitting here also next to an Xbox One X and a stack of games for that. I play Xbox, I play PS5, I play PC. I'm not one of those people who screeches about their plastic box. I don't like those people. If you have a preferred platform and thing you enjoy, by all means, totally get it, have your passion. But the people who try to pick fights over the plastic box with machinery in it, I don't really care about that. I don't think most people who have stuff going on in their life care to argue about that, really. But I'm sitting here next to all this stuff. I'm sure people will still be pissed off about it. But Xbox really does look almost worse in this scenario because they took direct shots at Sony right after their big disaster of a terrible pre-order that has landed so many listings of PlayStation 5 pre-orders on eBay, which there's a lot of problems here to cover. There's problems with laws because entrepreneurship is good, but there has always been an idea of scalping and price gouging, which is actually not legal in certain places. For example, it was historically illegal in a lot of states to resell sports tickets for, I believe it's above a certain percentage of the MSRP, so that you couldn't buy up all the tickets and then stand outside the stadium and resell them for 500% value to people who want to go in. That was actually made illegal in a lot of places. The problem is that those laws have not kept up with the internet, they have not kept up with mass production, and they've even been abandoned in some places. So, for one, it's on the country, and actually most of the countries, because most countries don't prevent this behavior. That's on them. Another thing that this is on really is these manufacturers to actually produce more and be able to meet the first rush in demand, because it is a disaster if within 2 or 3 hours no one can get your console for, X amount of days or weeks, and they have to sit and wait for more pre-orders that will probably have the same thing happen to it. There's also a problem with retailers. Some retailers don't have caps on what you can buy. Now, they did better with that this time. I think a lot of retailers had a maximum of 1 with something like the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X and S. But the problem there is that you basically need to actually have it be almost based on IP address, which could cause some problems with data security and stuff as well. So it's kind of a hard thing to do. But the problem is that if I'm running a bunch of bots from the same IP address from my house, and I have 10 of them buying a PlayStation 5 with different accounts, or I can create different accounts and buy the same thing, same with the Xbox Series S and X, that's a problem. Really, it should be limited to 1 per household, so 1 per IP address. People with VPNs can get around that, but you'd have to do a lot more work. And the whole system, it just needs to be reworked to make this harder for people to actually scalp these things, because that would help as well. I also do find it very amusing how bad the naming is for this thing with the Xbox Series X and S. And, well, Jay, it's not that confusing. You're right. It's not for you and me. The Xbox One S is the slimmer, not as powerful Xbox. It's like more powerful than the original, technically, Xbox One. Then the Xbox One X is the more powerful Xbox One X, more powerful than the One S. Yes, we understand that. Then the Series S is kind of the same way, not quite as powerful, smaller, some other differences. And the Series X looks like a refrigerator, it's bigger, and it's more powerful. We know those differences, absolutely. Do parents? Now, you can't honestly tell me that your grandma or your mom and dad, when you were a kid, were, I don't want to say not stupid enough, but like with it enough in terms of gaming, unless they were a gamer themselves, to know all the differences between all this hardware. And why am I talking about that? Well, because it's pretty funny that Xbox Microsoft is confusing their own name. They had actually released a press statement where they were talking about Destiny 2 Beyond Light, and they called the Xbox Series X the Xbox One Series X, which is not even called. And then on top of that, you had a release that the Xbox One X, not the Series X, the One X, the sales were up by 747% on Amazon on September 22nd, meaning a lot of people were very likely trying to buy the Series X and ended up buying the One X because they are so close to the same name. There's probably some in there that just bought the One X because it's a good middle ground console, much more powerful than the One S or the One, but less powerful than the Series consoles. I'm sure there's people who bought it for that reason. 747% though on that day when people were rushing for Series X pre-orders? No. Microsoft's made some dumb calls here. Their naming is dumb. The amount of actual hardware that they've put out there is dumb. They tried to spin it by just saying it's humbling that there was such a demand for it, even after they tried to really take a dig at Sony and flopped miserably on their own pre-orders. And then you have the final fact that for gamers like me who have a PC, there's now no reason to buy this thing. None. Pretty much all these games, as far as I understand, are going to be coming to PC. And frankly, they run better there. Why should I? There's a lot of ways that I think Microsoft's shooting themselves in the foot. And I hate to say that because the 360, that's what I really, grew up on. Other than the PlayStation 2, I switched over to Xbox for that generation. I only got into the PlayStation 3 in the last 5 years. And the Xbox 360 is a fantastic console. I love it. I love my Xbox One X. I like the brand. I like Microsoft. I like Game Pass. I like the pro-consumer approach. But they're doing a lot of stuff to alienate people away from buying the series consoles, whether it's because they already have a PC and they don't need it, whether it's because the naming is really stupid and confusing to people, or whether it's because of the fact that there's less exclusives and also just issues with them taking shots at our companies and not being able to fill those shoes themselves. Now, at the end of the day, am I mad about this? No, and here's why. I wasn't buying one. I have a PC. I'm not saying that as a humble brag. It's just I don't need this. I can play those games there already. I don't need another multi-$100 machine. I just don't need it. Maybe if there's ever an incentive or reason for me to get one, sure. But I didn't rush to pre-order this. I already pre-ordered the PS5. People are going to say I'm a PlayStation fanboy. I don't really care. I have my own problems with Sony and the way that they handled things too. Frankly, I just thought it was more fair to actually make this video instead of just calling out Sony and not saying something bad about Microsoft. So if you're butthurt, I'm sorry. Too bad. Get over it. The end. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Be sure to leave a like if you liked it. Leave a dislike if you dislike it, as always. You know, even if you're like a huge Xbox fan, you're like, how could he say something bad about the Xbox? That really hurt my feelings. I really need that engagement, so leaving that dislike gets being recommended. I appreciate it. I hope you guys all have a fantastic day. And, you know, keep that stupid plastic box fighting out of the comments. I don't care. Have a good one. See ya.